Hi, welcome to a new session. So far, we discussed the goals of psychological inquiry, steps involved in psychological inquiry, and this unit deals with particularly the research of psychological methods, how a psychologist understand human behavior, in which ways the researcher conducts his research and understand the data collected for the purpose of research and all. And today's topic is nature of psychological data. And so far, as discussed, after the goals and the steps, and we are familiar with what are the steps we have to take care in conducting a research or psychological inquiry. Let us see the nature of psychological data. So the meaning of nature of psychological data can be like which type of data. Like generally we will have the exams in a questionnaire based, theoretical based, practical based. The exam can be conducted in different ways, and even in such a way the data also can be of different types. So let's see and understand how this data can be. So far you might have got the question of uh, what is the difference between psychological data and other science data, and how psychologists perform this one, what is data related to. So far I am been buzzing this word, data. What are all these things? Okay, psychologists collect variety of information from different sources employing different methods. The information also called data. So as we said, the human behavior is different and the context, for example, say the situations the human being is may vary. As I said, the language, there are different factors like language, culture, the family conditions, environmental conditions, social conditions, the genetic condition, gender plays a role, age factor plays a role, the part of a day plays a role. There may be many factors, and we call them variables that can be explained in the later sessions. And how, and there is an important word like there is a singular for data. The word is datum. Datum, of course, we can use data for plural and the singular word. And but even it this word is really interesting. This is like a very new word to me also. Like it's very rarely used, this datum word related to individuals covert or overt behavior. Like generally, as I said, we will be dealing with overt behavior, but generally the data which is related to covert or overt behavior can also be called as data. Okay, they're subject to experiences and mental processes. Particularly it is related to the client and the experimenter who is examining the person. It is subjective to his or her experiences. Data form an important input in psychological inquiry. Of course, it is uh, without some basic information from the client, we cannot understand and move forward in the counseling sessions, particularly in the therapy also. The data plays a key role. The client history is the important thing for any psychologist to understand the client. That can be collected in any form like observation, experiment, and the methods we will be discussing in the coming time, but that's the important one. Without data, how can you make a decision? Generally, if you go to a hospital or a medical unit, they will conduct a basic test, a blood test. Uh, uh, they can be like a for if it is an orthopedician, he can suggest you for X-ray, CT scan, ECG, and even the brain, particularly EEG, fMRI, MRI, imaging techniques. There can be different methods of testing, but with what we will get with the test, we will get reports. We have to decode the reports and understand the condition of the client. So and even we deal with data every day is definitely a large amount of data being consumed and generated day to day. Data in 21st century has a key role, and even particularly in psychological counseling. They in fact appropriate the reality to some extent and provide an opportunity to verify and falsify our ideas, hunches, notions, etc. Particularly, that's what the idea gives you an understanding of what is the condition, and it gives us a benefit of understanding and verify whether our thoughts are correct to his condition, because psychological counseling is really sensitive one. Understanding the client's condition and the and his status is really important, and it decides a major role in the process. It should be understood that the data are not independent entities. The data are not independent entities. So why it is not independent? If you can see the cultural conditions, they're interdependent. If you can recall the first unit, you may understand that the behavior is interdependent. Mind is interdependent with the brain. So all these things will come into picture if you consider the data. They are located in a context and are tied to the method and theory that govern the process of data collection. So data collection, when you are collecting data, the temperature in a room, the light in a room, the internal condition, the health condition of the client, everything related to particular client, either internal or external, that is overt or covert behavior, can influence the data. That is the reason we have to have a control over the experiment, and particularly during the counseling, you have to have a pleasant climate and a climate with no or less distractions. And it is the comfortability of the client whether to proceed and participate in the data collection. In other words, data are not dependent of the physical or social context, the persons involved, and the time when the behavior occurs. Yes, in one way it is dependent, and in other one it is independent. That is what the conditions which you are considering. There may be conditions that you are not bothered about the context and fear things. It is like a naturalistic observation. In previous session, we discussed the methods of inquiry can be scientific and introspective, and even psychology as a natural science and as a social science. There can be several conditions where the data collection can be collected. The persons involved and the time when the behavior occurs, we have differently when alone than in a group. We behave differently alone and in group. Even you can check with your own behavior. or at home in office. This is what we are saying. And even there is a beautiful example given at the end of this one. We will be discussing that. Even when you are alone, you will be different and than compared to a group of friends. When you are with your friends, you will be very active. When you go outside, you will be very active. Some, like if it is an extrovert and an introvert, the personality of the person matters. So next, you may hesitate to talk in front of your parents and teachers, but not when you are with friends. That's what we discussed. You may also have noticed with parents you behave in some other way, teachers in a respective way, parents both in comfortable and uncomfortable. With friends, you may share everything. You may have also noticed that not all people behave in exactly the same manner in the same situation. That's what I told. If you're in a religious place, you may be calm and pleasant. If you're in a party, you may be dancing, you will be shouting, you will be you'll be crazy. The methods of data collection can be survey, interview, and experiment. These will be discussed, used, and the characteristics of respondents, such as individual or group, young or old, male or female, rural or urban. These are the several conditions where we have to consider. That's what, based on the behavior, based on the several conditions which we discussed, definitely plays a key role in collecting the data. Okay, it is possible that when you interview a student, he may report behaving in particular manner in a given situation. Particularly, these are really typical people. Adolescent, definitely, they are not child and they are not adult. They will be child and they can be adult. It is really a tough situations when you are dealing with an adolescent. Their conditions really, even the body growth is still has to come to a stage. It is in the age of transformation. So physically and mentally, both makes a crucial load. So dealing with a student is a tough challenge, but that has to be dealt. We have to help them overcome the particular stage and become a good individual. Okay, but when you go for actual observation, you may find just the opposite what she had reported. Right? He may report behaving in a particular manner in a given situation, but when you go, it is just opposite. It can be opposite. When he is reporting to the observer or the researcher, he will be saying something. When the mind is fresh and healthy, and when in a practical situation, like you can say Rama is a good boy, but in the real situation, there can be different. Another important feature of the data is that it does not in itself speak about reality. Yes, we should not be completely dependent on data. We should check, verify whether the data is really reflecting the behavior of the client. If you can see, there are two conditions. One is dependent, another one is independent. You should consider data. You should be very vigilant with the data which you are having. Interferences have to be made from data. Inferences, that is information. A researcher attaches meaning to the data by placing it in proper context. It is also really important. After collecting the data, we have to verify and judge whether the data is relevant to client, whether it matches or doesn't matches with the client. Okay. So what are the different types of data? The nature of data can be of several types, of some of them been taken and discussed. In psychology, different types of data or information are collected. Here, data, as it's a collective noun, as a single noun, it can be data is or data are. You need not to worry about that. Even there is a word datum, so you can use it as for the comfortability, but data is, you can use it as a general manner. Okay, are collected. Some of these types are demographic information. Demographic information related to the geography or the location, etc. This information generally includes the personal information like name, age, gender, birth order, number of siblings, education, occupation, marital status, number of children, locality of the resident, caste, religion, parental education, occupation and family income, etc. This is all related to physical and local information. You can see name. It is the name of the person. Age, either 1, 2, 3, 70, 60, 40, etc. Gender, male, female, third gender, or any other type. Birth order. I'm a second child, first child. I'm next to my brother. I'm a younger child. I'm an elder child, etc. Number of siblings. One sibling, two siblings, etc. Education, that can be 8th class, 7th class, first standard, second standard, BA, MA, engineering, whatever you call MBBS, graduation, post graduation, etc. The status or the stage. Occupation, that can be the job. It can be doctor, student, lawyer, a private employee, public employee. The occupation can be uh, like government, private. These type of information you will be collecting. Marital status, married, unmarried, and there can be like do not want to say, etc. Number of children, one, two, two is the limit, and okay, generally. Number of children is also can be collected if you are dealing with an adult. Locality of the residence, urban, rural, semi-urban, semi-rural. There can be like metro, town, village. Caste, yeah, there can be OCBC in Telugu. There can be different names. Religions, Hindu, Muslim, Christian. Based on the cultural factors and requirement of the research, may need different parental education, like who, like a mother and father, occupation, his occupation or her occupation, family income, it's a total income. All this information will comes under demographic. It is like physical data, physically or social data related to the client. The physical information, this category includes information about ecological conditions, hilly, desert, forest, mode of economy, housing conditions, size of the rooms, facilities available at home. These are geography related physical information which is in school. Mode of transport, this is like world, physical world. Here I used the physical world, which physical word, like physical body name, physical age, all this physical is different, and this physical, this is like the world, physical world. Okay. So these, by observing one or two reports, you can understand all these things, and even we will be seeing an example. Okay. Next, demographic, physical. It now it is physiological data. In physiological data, it can be like the human health condition. In some studies, Physical, physiological, psychological data are collected about height, weight, heart level, level of fatigue, galvanic skin resistance, electrical activity of the brain measured by electroencephalograph, blood oxygen levels, reaction time, duration of sleep, blood pressure, pattern of dream. The sleep can be amount of salivation, running and jumping rates in case of animal studies are collected. It is the health information, the health status of information, anything related to particularly which affects the physical health of the client. All these things, the sleep, resistance, oxygen levels, the simply you can put it as health info and factors related to these things. Okay. Next to it is psychological information. Psychological information, it is related to mental health. In the previous slide, it is geographical, demographic information. Physical information can be physical world. Next to it is physiological data, that is physical health. Next is mental health. Okay. So this is the basic information which we can understand, that is demographic, physical, physiological, psychological information. The psychological information that we will be understanding by the end of this textbook, all the 9 units you will be understanding, get good command over these things, the personality, interest, and even during the psychological test we will be understanding these terms: personality, interest, intelligence, creativity, emotions, motivation, disorders, illusions, hallucinations, perceptions, judgment, conscious process, subjective experience. All these things will be discussed in the coming sessions. The above information could be, from the point of view of a measurement, somewhat crude, like in the form of categories such as high, low, S, no, ranks which provide ordinal data, first, second, third, as we discussed in the child order, scores like 10, 12, 15 on scales, like you even like a heartbeat, blood oxygen levels, that can be number. Gender can be male options, and these types can be used to prefer collecting data. We also obtain verbal reports, like there is a TAT, performance tests, speed tests. Speed tests we will be calculating on the performance. Performance tests, there can be this theoretical range you will be asking, and even observation methods. Observation method is one such method which uses these verbal reports. Personal diaries, field notes, archival data, like a diary. In previously we will, like now, social networking pages, information, all these things will be both qualitative, qualitative and quantitative. This is quality, quantity. Okay. You will get some idea about the later in this chapter. Such type of information is analyzed once collecting the data using qualitative methods. There will be quantitative methods and qualitative methods. So far, this is what the session is. We have understood the goals of psychological inquiry, steps in psychological inquiry, what are all important in these things, and we have seen the nature of data, the types of data, that is demographic, physical, physiological, and psychological information, and That's how I end this session. Thank you so much for your participation, and let's get back to you with another session. Thank you so much.